on this edition of the Self-Publishing Show.
It was not an easy year, I'll be honest, but then, pretty much to the day that I started the job a year later, I handed my resignation. Yeah, that was a year ago, and it's been amazing, and I do not want to go back.
Publishing is changing. No more gatekeepers, no more barriers, no one standing between you and your readers. Do you want to make a living from your writing? Join indie bestseller Mark Dawson and first-time author James Blatch as they shine a light on the secrets of self-publishing success. This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Yes, hello. Welcome back to the Self-Publishing Show. It's Friday. It's James Blatch.
And Mark Dawson. Hello.
Hey, Mark, are you having a good week?
I don't know, because we're batch recording this. So, yes, you're so false. I'm going to be honest with our listeners and viewers.
It's a mini batch.
I'm wearing the same jumper. And you're wearing, well, you're always wearing that. You've watched that for years. But anyway, yes, we're recording this on a Friday, so this goes out. We're recording this 2 weeks before it goes out. So
yeah, it's a Thursday, actually.
It is a Thursday. That's very true. I'm so tired and disoriented. I don't really know where I am at the moment.
You're discombobulated.
I am.
Yeah, this goes out a week on Friday, so it's going to go out on the 1st of March. I'm actually driving to the Alps, splendid mountain range, through the central massif of Europe tomorrow to do some skiing for a week. But such is the life of the people who work for themselves. I will also be working. My laptop will be there. And I'll be writing, because I've got to do at least 950 words a day in February to hit my target. Actually, I think I worked out last night. I forgot I did my figures last night. I think I worked out I need to write more than that a day. So 1,200. And the way I tend to work is every 2 days I write 2,500, 3,000 rather than a bit a day. But how do you, what's your word count at the moment? You can put me to shame now.
I'm kind of in the editing phase of something. So I'm, I don't know, I did about 2,500 words yesterday. And we'll probably do 1,000 or 1,500 today once all this stuff is out of the way. But when I'm writing normally, I'd say if I'm writing something from scratch in the kind of pure drafting phase, I try to hit 3,000. If I'm dictating, that could be double that without too much bother. So yeah, that's kind of what I aim for.
Talking of dictating, so I interviewed Kevin J. Anderson, the very well-known sci-fi author, this week, and he's a big dictator. I mean, he goes on walks by himself in the mountains and writes books, just turns them out.
Yeah, I met him in Bali, so that's where we introduced. I got to know him, and I saw him a couple of times going out with a little dictaphone and going for a walk on the beach, and he said, "Just written a short story." Okay, that's pretty good.
Do you use the dictaphone?
We're not doing that joke. That's for sure.
Surely we can do that joke. Okay, yes, he was great. It was a great interview. I was very fanboyish about it because I read all the Tim Zahn and Kevin J. Anderson Star Wars books 10, 20 years ago, something like that. So there I was talking to him. Lovely, lovely guy and prolific. And despite being a sort of slightly older, bearded sci-fi writer, I can't remember how old he is, maybe 60s. He's wants to keep himself cutting edge. He loves the whole self-publishing thing. Although he did say in an ideal world, he would just sit there and write and someone would take care of business. But he also understands where the commercial successes are, where the best returns are. So yeah, good interview. Kevin J. Anderson coming up.
Yes, no, he's an interesting guy. Definitely.
Right, I was going to give you an update on my book, From Kevin J. Anderson, From the Sublime to the Ridiculous. And I was going to talk, I know I gave an update the other week about where I was in terms of the writing. So I'm probably, obviously a bit further on than I was, probably 115, 120,000 words, can't remember exactly now, into the book, which is longer than I thought it was going to be, which does have an impact on the particular way that I'm writing it. So people will know that I was struggling a bit with the drafting phase of it, having written it twice, and needed editorial input, which I got, and then stumbled across Jenny Nash's Author Accelerator program, which I could tell straight away was going to be something I would benefit from. So I signed up for them. And what this involves is a subscription for 6 months. You pay $450 a month. I think Jenny herself, if you want to work with her, is $3,000 a month. But for one of her team of editors, it's $450 a month. And what you get for that is you get weekly deadlines. So every week you submit your scenes as you go along. So on a Tuesday is my submission day. I submit my scenes, and then a couple of days later I get the notes back from the editor. And then every month or so, we probably have a call as well, and we talk through the story and how it's going. And the notes are developmental editing notes, although she does a bit of copy and proofing, as editors always do, as she goes through. But it's mainly, what are they thinking? Why have they done that? And in the case of Lisette, she's very, very good at motivating me as well. Says, I absolutely loved this. And James, I can't wait for this to unfold. And so that is a very important part of the process for me, to have her excited about the book and the story as well. But it's grown quite a lot. So, and it is, I think I said this before, for somebody who'd worried about not being able to do the long form writing, I found it has been a very natural part of this process anyway. And I'm writing chapters quite detailed about what people are thinking and why they're doing it. Very motivational is what Lisette wants me to do. And that's filling out the book a bit. So we're now at 100 odd, 20,000 odd words. I've got to the pivotal scene, which used to be page 1 of the original drafts that I did. We got through that this week, which is a big moment, emotional moment for me as well, for the book. And we also had a conversation about the subscription, how much I'm paying and how long this is going to go on, because the 6 months, although we had a break over Christmas for various reasons, the 6 months effectively comes to an end at the end of this month we're in now, which is February. So by the day this podcast goes out. So what we decided to do, and this is entirely Lisette sort of prompting about, or we talked it through her offer, is I know what I'm doing effectively now. And we had a call where we talked through the last third of the book, everything that needs to happen. So I'm pretty much going to write that now without submitting week by week scenes. I will submit to her every 2 weeks so she can catch a problem if there's a problem, but it's not for the detailed level of feedback that I've been getting so far. Then when we get to the end of it, I'll buy one more month, another $450, which will take me up to $3,100 for the whole thing. And that month will effectively be the revision. Now, the beauty of this process is that you do a lot of revision as you go along, which I know some people don't think is the right thing to do, but you get the notes. At the beginning, that was rewriting scenes and slightly changing the direction of things. Now, because I understand what Lisette wants and what we're working towards together, there's almost none of that. You know, I get notes a little bit of, I think this would be a stronger end to the scene if she said, definitely, I'm leaving him, rather than I'm thinking about leaving him. That sort of note I'm getting now. So I'm in a position where I can write, and we get to the end of it now, having such a clear thought process between us that this is a book that's ready to have its fat trimmed. And that is effectively what the revision process is going to be through the month of April into May, is going to be fat trimming before it then goes into proofing and copying, which is beyond exciting for me to think that I could get to that stage. Having said that, beyond, it might go a little bit further than that. And I probably am realistically looking at June to have this process finished, just because, you know, I might need to write to 160,000 words before we start the fat trimming. But for me, I can't tell you, Mark, how this process has worked for me, how much I enjoy it, how much it's brought structure and progress to a project that had effectively stalled.
Yeah, no, it's great. I was reasonably skeptical about I think it's quite expensive, although I think I can see the value in it. But whatever works, if that's what you need to get you to do the writing and to finish the book, then it's got to be a good investment. I think you're ambitious on your timings. I think if fat trimming is not something you'll be able to do quickly, because you trim something, then there'll be consequential changes that follow from that. So that's my favorite part of the editing is the whole process. When I get to say 100,000 words, I might take 10,000 out, and that's my favorite bit, because you know that you've got your structure there, your basis there, and you're removing extraneous passages that you don't need. You're tightening language. You're making it, shining it up. Basically, you're polishing it and making it really beautiful and effective. So I love that bit. I'm kind of in that process with the book I'm writing at the moment. So we'll see how you get on. I think if you get up to 150,000 words, that's, for me, that feels long. We mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. I could be wrong on this. There are obviously big fat doorstep books in that genre, and I haven't read the book either. So I'm talking really with no idea what I'm talking about. But I wouldn't be surprised if you find you take out 25,000 words in the kind of editorial process. But just do budget for a little. It will take longer than you think it will.
Yes, I think that's fair enough. But one of the exciting things is I'm allowing myself to start thinking about things like lead magnets now, about next book, but in particular how I'm going to launch this book. You've done your psychological analysis of Milton. I've certainly got areas I'm turning over in my mind now. There's a military flying accident is prominent in my book. So to have the crash report, which I can style on, they're all published now, the 1960s crash reports.
Yeah.
And there's an operative from the security services in there as well. So I have similar scope for doing something there. So, and I think, if somebody gets to the end of the book, I'm thinking about if somebody gets to the end of any book, they obviously engage with it enough to have that, well, here's the inside track on a major event that happened in that book, I think would be a very tempting reason for somebody. I think it'd be a reasonable conversion rate on somebody then going to your mailing list and getting on it. So I'm starting to allow myself to think about those things, whereas before I thought this was frivolous and wasting time. I should be writing the book. I'm just starting.
Did you say second book?
And I'm thinking about the second book, yes.
So will that be what, 2025?
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say about the financial investment I'm making here, the $3,000. This is my first book and I am learning how to write. Now, lots of people say to me, well, that's far too expensive. I couldn't afford to do that. But these are people who've got 4 books behind them and they, in their 20s taught themselves how to write or had an easier process into it than I have. I'm definitely somebody who has benefited from being given these pointers. And I tell you one thing's interesting. I've written this book 3 times now. So the first draft, I remember when I did no writing like this before in my life, I remember the end of it being so different from the way I wrote at the beginning. I mean, just different books because I was starting to learn and understand. The second time I wrote it was during the 101 course, where I decided to throw out the first draft and just write the whole book again. And it changed a lot during that structurally, lots of structural development problems. But my writing was different at the end from the beginning. Of course, it developed, but not as much. And now, I look at chapter 1 of this book, and I have actually, every time I read a chapter, I make some changes to it, of course. I guess that's a writer's occupational hazard. But it's basically, the change is much less. So I can feel my own development now. You go up quite quickly at the beginning of anything you learn, and then it starts to level off a bit. You're still learning, never stop learning, of course. But that's where that money's gone for me. So that should stand me in good stead. So I won't need to do a month by month, week by week process for book 2, I don't think. But I will definitely want to work with an editor right at the beginning on the outline so that she feeds me back or he feeds me back those important points to hit, and then I go off and write it. That's how I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. It's everyone's looking forward to it. No pressure. We've got everyone listening to the podcast is very keen to rush out and buy a copy and ruin your also boughts when it goes live.
I'm not going to say no, though, am I?
No.
So if everybody could start buying military Cold War thrillers now before they buy my book. That's not too much to ask, is it? That people not only buy my book, but they also buy.
Yeah, they need to, spend $20-$30 on Tom Clancy and
Nelson DeMille.
Nelson DeMille, we mentioned him last week. James Joyce.
That's so snobbish. James Joyce.
And then they'll be ready to go, ready to buy The Last Flight when it comes out in the summer next year.
Got a great video trailer as well, which we showed, didn't we, a few weeks ago?
It is very good, very good.
All ready to go. I'm so excited. And I feel that there are so many people holding my hand through this process from the SPF community. I feel very lucky to be surrounded by people who have nothing but enthusiasm, occasionally ticking off for me for what they consider dilly-dallying, but generally very supportive. And in the same way that we try to be as supportive as possible to people who are navigating their challenges in writing. So that's a great thing about this. Good. Okay. Now, one thing we have been working on in the background of SPF recently has been our YouTube channel. So many of you, we often try and say to you, listening to the self-publishing show, we know that most people do listen to it, that go and take a look at it because we put a lot of time and effort into how it looks and feels, video side. But we have been putting effort into the YouTube channel being an important resource in its own right for independent writers, or for writers whatever way they publish. So we're just starting to roll out these videos. Now, you've done a mini-series on surveying your readers. We've taken on Tom Ashford, who is a writer based in London, and Tom has been turning out videos on, we mentioned word count just now, so Tom has done a little mini essay on how many words should be in your book, and he describes when it's important to consider word count, when it's not important to consider word count, and so on. I've seen some of his other titles coming up. In fact, in front of me today, he's been busy the last few days. So we think the YouTube channel is, we think we want to make it a useful and go-to resource for people. It's going to take a while to build up that level of instructional video, but we would urge people to go and check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've actually just at this moment told Tom to make the first 5 videos live on YouTube. So they will be up as this podcast goes out. And I may do another recording whilst I'm in the office today. I think I might do something on backing up your work, because I've been looking at, I've been a bit lax on that. And I've, touched wood so far, have avoided losing lots of work with a technical problem. So that's only eventually something will happen to one of the laptops I'm using. So I'm now using multiple redundancies, so physical hard drives like one I've got on the desk here, Dropbox, CrashPlan, iCloud, all this kind of stuff. I've got loads of different ways this stuff is getting saved now, because it's as a writer, one of the things that you worry about the most is that your 20,000 word work in progress disappears. Scrivener F's it up and you can't find it anymore. And to be able to go back and pluck a previous version so you don't lose that work is something that we all should do. So I may do something on there, but yeah, there's going to be lots of content on YouTube going up with different bits and bobs. Several videos a week is the plan at the moment. So, may even get John Dyer out of the dungeon. What could John do? Procrastination for writers.
Yeah, I could do that one. Lead pages, I guess, and John is our landing page guy and web stuff.
You can do some web stuff.
Literally, as we talk, Tom Ashford has just posted into our little Slack communications channel, and they're live. So that's it. So our YouTube channel has its first instructional help videos available to you. And you can get to it. It's youtube.com, obviously, / I think self-pub formula. Let me just check that. Yeah, self-publishing formula. youtube.com / self-publishing formula.
Are you an author?
Oh my goodness, you've started talking to me. Did you hear that?
What's that?
I went onto the channel. You immediately started talking to me. Good. Excellent. Right. Have we introduced the interviewee?
No,
we haven't introduced the interview yet. We've been rambling on.
A lot of guff, annoying at least one of our audience.
Yes.
Others are delighted by it. So
that is our aim, to annoy. So this week's guest is all the way from New Zealand, and she is really got herself drilled into. She enjoys the whole fantasy, urban fantasy, etc. genres, and she's got herself drilled into these little emerging trends, these little subgenres within subgenres. And I think we talk about, what is it, reverse harem at the beginning.
That's not a little genre.
No, well,
that's a big genre now.
We say it's a big genre, but literally,
you haven't heard of it.
I haven't heard of it. Well, I don't read fandom. Do you heard of it?
Yeah, well, I'm quite plugged into the community, so it's a big one. It's a really hot, trendy subgenre at the moment. Okay, so Steff Green is somebody who does plug herself into these and finds a way of making them commercially work for her. So let's hear from Steff.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Steff, welcome to the Self-Publishing Show. People don't need to know this, but this is the third time we've started the interview just because of technical issues. But we did work out at the beginning that if you hold a globe, you couldn't put two people further apart from each other than the United Kingdom and New Zealand. So it's a bit of a miracle that's working, but it is. I can see and hear you. And I think we're going to give it a go this time. So welcome to the Self-Publishing Show, all the way from down under.
Thank you so much for having me from the future.
Yes, from the future, of course. You're tomorrow already. It's Tuesday. You've got your hover cars and your spacesuits and everything going there. Exactly. Look, Steff, we're going to talk about some of these things. Now, we're going to talk about the huge genre area that you work in. I'm excited to talk to you about something that I had to look up earlier called reverse harem, which I know is a big growing area at the moment. And we're also going to talk about juggling different pen names at the same time. So a few areas to cover in this. But let's first of all let me ask you a general question about some of the areas you write in, which is fantasy. You've written paranormal, gothic. these are areas that feel to me like they've been enabled by the whole indie revolution.
I would completely agree, yes. So when I started writing, paranormal, paranormal romance in particular, the publishers weren't really taking it. They felt that vampires had had their heyday, no one was really reading werewolves, and no one wanted any kind of other paranormal creatures that weren't vampires or werewolves. So it was just really kind of, the big names were getting published, but there wasn't a lot, no one was really taking any new authors. And then the indies came along, and those readers who were reading those books they never stopped wanting them, they never stopped reading them, and the indies came along and said, hey, I'd really like to write some vampire books and some werewolf books. So people started doing that, and the readers just gobbled them up, just more, please give us more vampires, we need more sexy werewolves. And so now when you look on Amazon, the paranormal charts are just absolutely dominated by indies and the big traditional names, but it's such a huge market for indies, it's incredible, and it's really amazing to be part of that, actually.
Yeah, it is really exciting. And it makes sort of sense when you think about it that before the indie revolution, you had a limited number of publishers. It was quite expensive and a long-term project to get a single book out, sign a new author. So there was a limited amount they could do to test the market, to know what people wanted. They were guessing, their instincts, they could do some surveys. But now you've got 1 million writers. And they're all writing what they want, what they love, and uploading it. And the market is deciding what's going to fly. And loads of areas that traditional publishers were perhaps a bit sniffy about in the past are flourishing now. And how brilliant is that?
Exactly. It's amazing. It's a really exciting time to be a writer.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, well, let's talk about some of the particular areas, though. So you've mentioned, I've mentioned some of the genres that I'm familiar with, but reverse harem, I have to say, I wasn't familiar with before you put it into your notes to me. So just explain what reverse harem means.
So reverse harem is becoming quite a big... It's almost not really a genre, it's more kind of, I like to refer to it as a relationship type, and it's becoming a big trend particularly with indies on Amazon. So what it is you have a harem novel, which were very popular in sort of old school fantasy. They're quite popular in lit RPG, and they're quite popular in some sort of old-fashioned romance books where there's one guy, and he's got lots of women who are interested in him, who he's got a relationship with, and the women don't necessarily have a relationship with each other, but they're all connected to this guy. And obviously, the word comes from harems, the kind that you might see in sort of like ancient Egyptian princes and things like that would have. And so that's kind of the history of the word. And there's quite a popular subgenre of anime called reverse harem, where there will be one main female character, and she will have this kind of group of males around her. And they're often kind of high school drama shows. Koran High School Host Club is quite a popular one. And so there's this girl, and she's got all these guys around her, and some of the guys might be friends, and some of them might not be, but they're all in a relationship of some description with the main female character. And usually at the end she will choose, in anime, she'll choose one of them. And so this has been sort of popular in the anime for quite a while. And then a few years ago, these books started to appear on Amazon. There's kind of C.L. Stone's quite an early author, C.M. Stunich, Tate James, a few of these guys started publishing these books, and the idea was that there would be this main female character, and she would have all these men around her in a relationship with her, and at the end she would not have to choose one. So she could have all of the guys, all of the cake, eat it too. How much fun is that? So sort of in the last 2 to 3 years, this genre, this relationship type has kind of exploded, and it's particularly popular in paranormal romance. I think largely for the reason that in a paranormal world, it's much easier to kind of create the world building where a polyamorous relationship, which is effectively what this is kind of accepted. So there's a lot of books where it's set in an alternative world where women having a harem of men is kind of an accepted part of society, or it's part of how she gains her magic, or something like this, or often there might be a wolf pack and she's mated to the whole pack, that kind of thing. So they're quite popular in paranormal, but there's also contemporary reverse harems. There's also reverse harem. Oh, there's reverse harem everything. There's reverse harem urban fantasy. There's reverse harem. Elsie Hibbert did a cozy mystery series. The new series I've just launched this week is a paranormal mystery series. There's science fiction reverse harem. There's anything that you can imagine, you can reverse harem it. So it's quite a lot of fun to write as a writer, which is why that's what I've been doing for the last year or so. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I hope there's the reverse harem washed up MI6 officer genre comes up, because then Dawson can get his teeth into it. So how do you keep a track of these subgenres, these trends in writing? Because this is quite a modern development of authors who are casting their eyes around the world, seeing what's trending, and then just sort of getting on that wave.
I think there's two things with being an indie, and the first one is that is to read quite widely. So I'm not as voracious as some of my readers. They're all on Facebook at the moment posting that they've read 500 books last year or 800 books last year, and I'm like, whoa, I read about 100. So I'm not quite that voracious, but I'm a relatively voracious reader. So I'm always looking at the charts and going, oh, I would like to read that. Oh, I'd love to read that. And that's how I got into reverse harem originally, was that I read a few of the books and I loved them as a reader. And I wasn't going to write one, but then the idea for a series kind of bit me, as they tend to do. So I read a lot, and the other thing is that because as an indie you can write a book in a month or in a few months and then publish it immediately, you're not waiting that year or 2 years for the publisher, for it to go through the publishing process, then you're kind of able to experiment a bit more, and you can jump on trends or what you think might be a trend, and even if you're wrong, and you publish something and it's a bit kind of falls flat, then 2 months later you can release another book in a different genre, and you can try something new and you can experiment, and we've got that flexibility that sort of the traditional world lacks, which is part of what makes being indie so exciting and also a little bit scary.
Yeah, and Japan often seems to be the place where these genres take off and become sort of embedded before they break out into the rest of the world. I'm not really sure why that is. It's a quite distinct culture in Japan, isn't it? I'm just wondering whether geographically, New Zealand feels that a little bit sooner perhaps than we do over in the West, in the UK and the US. You're quite kind of in the zone.
No, I would say usually we're about 12 months behind everything else. I'd say the exact opposite. We're just a little bit too far away from everything, I think, and just not really the centre of anything.
Well, we have the internet now. Look, here we are chatting to each other. So
exactly.
So you don't need to get a plane or a boat anymore. Good. Well, you've identified these areas, and I think what comes over to me is what you wanted to do. What you found is that you really got excited about it and wanted to dive in there, and that's a great driver, rather than necessarily coldly sitting there thinking, well, here's a commercial area for me to exploit. It's just seeing something that you wanted to do and doing that.
Exactly. And I mean, there's certainly a place in indie, and there's a lot of authors that do this who take quite an analytical view of this is what's trending, this is what's selling, this is what I should do, breaking down books into kind of these are the beats, that kind of thing. And there's 100% a place for that. But I find for me personally, if I'm not, like this job is quite hard to do. If you wanted to make money, there's 100 easier ways that you could do it. Just every other way to make money is probably easier than being a writer. And so if you're not enjoying it, then there's almost no, why don't we just go and get a real job? So I kind of feel as though I've got to be having fun writing the books, because otherwise there's other things I could be doing, and I don't want to be doing other things. I want to be doing this. So I've kind of looked at things before sometimes and thought, oh, here's a thing I could do, and maybe that would make money, but nothing I've ever gone into where I've looked at it and thought like that has ever turned out as well as the projects where I've been really super passionate about them. And I'm also lucky in that the things I'm super passionate about are relatively commercially successful. Like I'm super passionate about paranormal romance and not like postmodern poetry or anything like that. So that's a bit of a relief.
Yes, it is. Postmodern poetry is still that tough nut to crack in commercial terms. But you did crack it, Steff, because nigh on a year ago, I think you went full-time. Tell us about the moment you realised that was going to be a possibility for you.
Yes, it was awesome. So I have been working in the tech industry as a content writer for about 3 or 4 years in different companies. And so I was relatively well paid and stuff like that. So it's quite hard to think, oh gosh, I've got this great job that actually a lot of people would kill for, and I'm thinking of giving it all up for this, this pipe dream of being a writer. I've been aiming to go full-time ever since I started writing paranormal romance, which was 2015, and kind of working towards that. And as I was doing that, my husband and I were building a house. So it's like our dream house. We designed it ourselves. We did a lot of the work ourselves. So we were, up on our plot of land every weekend, working on this house. We live off the grid. We kind of a little bit self-sufficient, so we got all this land for growing vegetables, and got a little chickens and sheep and stuff. So it's kind of a crazy thing that we did. And the house itself is about an hour outside of the main city where my job was, and I am. You might be able to notice from the video, I'm actually legally blind, so I can't drive, and that's why I blink all the time and stuff like that. So I can't drive, and so getting to work was starting to become, we knew was going to be a hassle for me. And the jobs I had, I was lucky in that people would allow me to work from home a few days a week. And 2 years ago in February, I accepted a job that was too good to be true. And that was going to be about an hour of 45-minute commute each way to where the office was. So about, 3.5 hours each day commute. And they wanted me to come in 4 days a week. And then the day before I was meant to go to the office, they emailed me and they said, oh, by the way, we've actually moved the office to a place that's about 45 minutes extra away from you. Hope that's not a problem. And I went, oh gosh. And so my commute turned into a 5-hour daily commute. 1 hour long, 1 hour long car ride with my husband, and then 2 buses to get to the office, and then the same thing on the way home. And when I did that, I would sat down with my husband and we kind of crunched the numbers, and we said, okay, I can do this job for a year, and I'm not going to do it any longer than that, because this is just going to kill me. So I spent the year kind of putting everything into place so that I could quit and as soon as I possibly could. So I took on some extra freelance work, and I kind of really planned out my releases and what was the next thing I could do that would earn us more money, and of course we had to finish the house first before I could quit, and all these kind of things. So I spent this year, and it was quite a horrible year actually, because I would do my 5-hour commute, go to the office, come home, and then I would work all night on my books or on freelance work, and then every weekend I would work, and it was not an easy year, I'll be honest. But then, yeah, pretty much to the day that I started the job a year later, I handed my resignation, and I left, and that was a year ago, and it's been amazing, and I do not want to go back. I'm pretty determined that this is going to be me for the rest of my life. It is absolutely amazing. It's everything you've ever dreamed of.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, congratulations on planning it and getting there and putting in that work. And just one question on the visual impairment you mentioned. So I guess I was thinking about, you could use the commute, the bit on the bus at least to write, but did that make it impossible to do because you needed audio equipment or something, whatever, to write?
No, I actually I would actually, when I got on the bus, I would get my laptop out and put it on my, kind of, to balance it on really carefully on my lap on top of the bag, and I would type, because I could usually type 1,000 words there and 1,000 words back before I had to put it down so that I could make sure I got off at the right stop, kind of thing. There was twice actually where I kept writing and got too far on the bus and had to go back. But yeah, so I would try and do 2,000 words on the bus on the way there.
Yeah, not ideal, that's for sure. But anyway, well done, and there'll be people taking heart and inspiration from that tale of, I guess, fate played its hand as well in that the job offers and the house move made this date appear on your horizon that you then put everything into.
Yeah, I may not have, if I hadn't have taken that last job, I may have just, because I'm quite, because I've got my husband as well, and, it's not just my dream and it's not just my income, it's about both of us and our family. So if I hadn't have had that impetus to quit, so I didn't have to do that sodding commute, I might still be working. It might have taken me another 5 years. I might never have felt safe enough to quit. And there's still a few months where we go, but never enough that I think about going back.
Sure. But talk to us about the books, Steff, then. So what series have you produced so far, and what are you working on at the moment?
So last year I put out my first reverse harem series, which was a 5-book series called the Briarwood Witches series, and that was it's basically about the main character is she's a total science nerd, and she's off to MIT and she's going to be an astronaut. She's going to be in the space program, and then her parents are tragically killed. And she inherits she's in Arizona in the US, and she inherits an old English castle. And so she goes to her castle, and it turns out it's got 5 tenants in it, and the 5 tenants are they're all a bit different, and they're all quite hot young men. And she, through a course of events, she discovers that she's actually a witch, and these 5 guys are also witches, and there's some not very nice fae who are coming through a wormhole at the back, portal at the back of the castle, and she's got, these witches have got to fight them off, and it was really cool series to write, because I love this idea that she was this complete science, rational thinking, and then she discovers she's a witch, and so she spends a lot of the series kind of trying to rationalize her power, and all these random supernatural things that are happening to her scientific knowledge, and so it was heaps and heaps of fun to write. So that series is 5 books. They're quite lengthy books, and it's all completely finished. And the box set's out now and it's doing really, really well. It's the biggest, best, most successful series I've ever written, so that was really exciting. And I've also got 10 other books, which are all shifter books, so werewolves and foxes and raven shifter stories that are all set in a small town in England. They're a little bit Midsummer Murders, but with with shapeshifters. So I got that, and then I've just released book 1 in a new series, which is another reverse harem series, which I'm super excited about. And it's a paranormal mystery series, and it's a bit like cozy mystery series, except that it's got a lot of sexy times in it. And it's set in a cursed bookshop in England, which is run by some fictional men. So Heathcliff is the owner of the bookshop, and he's a little bit Bernard Black from Black Books. And
No, I don't know how many people are going to get that reference, but I loved Black Books, so
it's the best. And yeah, he anyone who reads it who loves Black Books will totally see Bernard Black in Heathcliff. So Heathcliff's the bookshop owner, and then there's James Moriarty, and he's hanging out there as well, and Poe's Raven, so Quoth the Raven, is also there, and that is the heroine's harem. And in the first book, her best friend's murdered in the bookshop, and she's the chief suspect, so they've got to solve the murder before she ends up going to jail for it. And it's so much fun to write. It's called A Dead and Stormy Night, the first one, and then I'm writing the next one at the moment, which is called Of Mice and Murder, and I've got about 5 books in the series all planned, all with kind of punny book titles, and yeah, it's great fun.
that's a good title. So would you say it's a paranormal the one thing that runs across all your books?
Absolutely, 100%. The tagline for my pen name, which is Stephanie Holmes, is paranormal with a touch of the gothic, which is kind of my wheelhorse. So most of my books are set in England. A lot of them feature kind of crumbling houses and creepy bookshops and that kind of traditional sort of gothic or gothic romance elements. It's a huge thing that I adore. And then I have another pen name, Steff Green, which is kind of it's got my dark science fiction on it. It's got an urban fantasy sort of dystopian series on it, and it's the book I'm going to be releasing my children's book from in March. So it's kind of my catch-all name for everything that doesn't really fit really well with paranormal romance, but all of it has this kind of fantastical, paranormal, dark theme running through it as well.
Okay, well, let me just ask you about the twin pen names. We do get this question quite a lot at the beginning when people are setting themselves up with their Facebook accounts, their social media accounts, their KDP accounts, etc., knowing that they're going to have 2 pen names. It sounds to me like a complication that could get out of hand for some people. How do you manage that?
So the reason I have 2 pen names is kind of a funny story. And that kind of comes back to why you would want to do it, and what's the point, and is it actually worth it? As I said, I started out publishing this quite serious, really dark science fiction stuff. It's a bit kind of China Mayville, that kind of vibe. And I published, I think it was 2 books in that series, and I was making about $10 a month, that kind of thing. And I went along to this party, and with some friends, and a friend there was talking about how she'd read 50 Shades of Grey and she absolutely loved it. And I was being a typical author, and I was like, oh well, I read the first chapter and it was so terrible and I couldn't read any more. And she was getting a bit annoyed with me, being a bit of a snob. And so she says, well, it's not like you could write a book like that. And I sort of said, well, no, you're probably right. But in my head I went, okay, challenge accepted. So, without telling anyone, completely on the sly, I wrote this kind of 30,000 word novella about this fox shapeshifter who was an artist, and he was a recluse until he met this gallery assistant, and then there was a bunch of werewolves after them and stuff like this. So I wrote this sexy paranormal fox shapeshifter story, and I put it up under a completely secret pen name, which was Stephanie Holmes. And I thought, well, if we're just going to see, if this is going to work. And so I did that, and the first book sold about, it was like 1,000 copies in the first couple of weeks, and I was just, what? No, what? And so I wrote another one, the second book in the series, and that kept selling, and it just kept selling, and I kept expecting Amazon to call me and say, look, we're really sorry, but we've actually given you someone else's royalties, and we're just going to take those back. But they never called, and the books, and I published a third book, and they kept selling, and they were so much fun to write. And so I sort of had to sheepishly one day tell my husband, look, I actually kind of made all this money, but not from my super, not from my super serious dark science fiction, from these like paranormal romance sexy books. And he just laughed. He's like, well, you're going to write some more, right? And I said, yeah, okay, I will do that. So it was sort of, I never really thought too much about what the future of the name was. It was just kind of this experiment that I'd done, just because this friend said to me, you can't do that. And so when I started Stephanie Holmes, it was actually sort of by accident, very tightly branded. So everything under that pen name is paranormal romance. It has this gothic touch. Everything feels like it is a perfect way for a reader to start one series, and then when they finish that, they can go on to the next series, because it's all super tightly branded. Whereas Stephanie Holmes, SC Green, my other pen name, was this sort of dark science fiction name, but it also, at the moment, what it currently does is serve as a catch-all for any other project that I'm potentially interested in that doesn't fit really well under Stephanie Holmes. And SC Green is about something like 5% of my income. It's not very much at all, but it means that if I have another project I want to do, for instance, I'm publishing this children's book in March, and that is not going to go down very well with my paranormal romance readers. It's just two completely different audiences, and so that's gonna go under SC Green. And so I'm a little bit different from other people with two pen names in that I focus 90% of my attention on Stephanie Holmes, and SC Green is my name for projects that don't fit under my other pen name. What do I have? So on Facebook I have Stephanie Holmes and SC Green pages. I have one reader group for all my stuff. I have one website for all of my stuff, which is a blog that I've been running for years and years and years. And I'm not secret with either pen name, so all readers know that I do lots of different things. And yeah, that's the way I've chosen to run it. But that's obviously not gonna, if you have a super secret pen name, that's not gonna work for everyone.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was quite fun that Stephanie Holmes was this side project that's become the monster.
Yeah.
Is now the dominant character. Now, there are some people who might write cozy romance and erotic romance, and for them, they would want to keep a separation because it could damage the brand on either side. So that becomes more difficult for them. A little bit easier for you, but nonetheless, you still have different brands to manage, and I guess there's a challenge in that.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of pitch, like, Stephanie Holmes is very specific, and it's very important to me that that brand stays pure, as it will. Is maybe the right word? Yeah, that brand stays a certain way. But on my main website, which is steffmetal.com, that's kind of about, sort of less about the books almost, and more about me as an author. And me as an author is kind of like I'm the same person. It's the same person that writes all the books. So it's kind of more about the things I'm interested in, and I was an archaeologist as a career originally, so I'm quite interested in like historical details and things like that. So I post a lot of that kind of stuff on my blog, and I post a lot about music and traveling and hiking and all that kind of stuff. So it's sort of more a personal brand. Is kind of my overarching thing, and the other pen name SC Green kind of fits into that personal brand as well. So yeah.
And you do a bit of writing for writers as well. In fact, did I read you've got a book, a non-fiction book for writing?
Yes. So I just last year, sort of as a side project, I have started publishing a lot of posts on my blog about, kind of trying to help beginner writers and also people who were at the stage where I was, where you're making a bit of money and you're thinking maybe I could quit my job maybe sometime in the nebulous future, to kind of put that plan in place to get there. And so I've been sort of once a week I've been putting up an article on my blog and talking on podcasts and doing really cool stuff like that. And I've just released in December an ebook for writers, which is available completely free if you go to my website and you sign up to my Creative Rebel newsletter. And it's called Unleash the Beast, Releasing Your Inner Writing Monster. And it's basically just about, it's kind of about the creative process, and it's about putting that plan in place where you can go from, hey, I've done the thing, to how do I do this as a career, kind of what are the next steps, that kind of thing. So so that's a lot of fun to write, and it's had a lot of really good responses. So anyone wants to grab that, you're more than welcome.
Where can they find that?
So on my website, which is Steff Metal, www.steffmetal.com, and there's just a tab for writers, and you can, when you sign up for the newsletter, you get the free copy. And it's a pretty meaty ebook, so it's not just like a couple of pages.
I expect nothing less from your application to everything, Steff. So let's conclude. I want to talk a little bit more about paranormal, because it's such a big area, and I love so many of the paranormal authors we have in our community. It's a fun and quite a broad area. But have you any explanation for me as to why it has grown so big?
I think there's a little bit, there's things going on in the world, and there's kind of two things that go with that. The world's a bit crazy at the moment, and I think one thing is that people quite like to escape from that, and sometimes reading books that are kind of contemporary and set in a contemporary world feel a little bit too close to home, like it's not quite enough like an escape. But more than that, I think often paranormal and supernatural creatures and things like that, they often serve as symbols for things in real life, and vampires can often serve often represent kind of greed. Werewolves often represent that kind of almost the battle of the human being versus natural instincts, like civilization versus chaos versus natural instincts, which is a really fascinating kind of thing to look at. Witches have become insanely popular, and I think there's a real desire for women in particular, because these books are predominantly read by women, to kind of look back at societies where women were revered as being wise, which is effectively what the witch was. She was a healer, and she was the leader of a tribe or anything like that. So it's kind of a desire to go back to that idea of women being wise and women having the power, because a witch literally has the power, and so I think that's quite powerful. And as a writer, it's quite good to always remember that those things, it's more than just writing about sexy vampires. There really is a real world kind of sense to it as well.
Yeah, that's really interesting hearing you talk about that, and the witch thing makes perfect sense as well, because of course they were also as an excuse to persecute women, and now I think there seems to be a resurgence of powerful, capable witch characters in control, sort of righting a little bit of the wrong and showing them, instead of just saying we weren't witches, embracing it and saying but there's a power to it and a beauty to it.
Exactly, and seeing witches in books using their powers for good, that's really powerful. It's really symbolic as well, I think. Yeah.
Great, and of course, alongside this huge explosion in paranormal in indie books has been Netflix and Amazon Prime, and equally They're falling over themselves at the moment to reboot Witch series. We've just had Sabrina, haven't we? It's rebooted, and there'll be plenty more where that came from. So it's a good time to be there. Have you had any nibbles from Hollywood, Steff, for any of your series or characters?
No, but I am. If anyone's listening, I'm here and I'm waiting. And I have a really great paranormal mystery bookshop series. If anyone ever wants to do the next Black Books, just get in touch.
That would be so awesome. And, you need to get hold of Peter Jackson. He's the obvious candidate to the Kiwi to get that done. Steff, look, it's been brilliant talking to you. The line has held out really well. We struggled a lot early on to get this thing settled, but it's been it's done us proud. So thank you so much indeed for joining us today. This is an area and a genre that I'm really interested in and love talking about. So there's no doubt we're going to revisit it on the show at some point in the future.
Awesome, and I'd be more than happy to come back. It's been heaps of fun. Thank you so much for having me.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
There you go, Steff Green. And we should say, I can't remember whether she mentions it in the interview or not, but I will just say that she is very, partially sighted is probably putting it mildly. I think she struggles to see clearly at all. So she's been through her life doing everything that the rest of us do, but with that particular challenge of not being able to see. And so all credit and admiration to Steff. It was fantastic talking to her. Now, how important is this, Mark, for maybe more important in some genres than others, to keep an eye on these emerging trends?
Yeah, it's important. I mean, it's a good chance to find opportunities. I mean, the first people who wrote reverse harem stuff, this would be, I don't know, a couple of years ago probably. It's been big since then. They would have done pretty well. And there are tools for finding those kinds of emerging little spots that you can take advantage of now. So KDP Rocket is a good one. K-Lytics. So we've got Alex on the podcast in the next week or two, I think, talking about their kind of reports looking into finding. The trick is finding genres and niches that have hungry readers but are underserved. That's the trick. So if you can find that, I don't know, make something up top of my head. I don't know, cowboys and dinosaurs. There you go, everyone. There's a free tip: cowboys and dinosaurs.
And you're absolutely certain that humans existed at the same time as dinosaurs, yeah?
Well, everyone knows that. My son told me that the other day. So, yes, to get that kind of finding an advantage in that there's a market there for the stuff that you're writing, but there's not much competition. That's cool. And with reverse harem, that was, so that's basically one woman, multiple men. So kind of a turning an old trope through 360 degrees. And then writing into that niche, they would have done quite well in the early days. It's still a popular genre, but it's not quite as simple to do well there as it might have been for those pioneers. So the trick is not to. That zeitgeist has probably moved on now. You need to find the next one. And there are ways to do that.
Well, look, next week's interview is all about this. It is with Alex Newton, and Alex is the guy behind K-Lytics, and he talks in very good detail about identifying those hot areas, as he calls them. And there's a heat map he does, these categories that have a lot of readers and not being particularly well served by
He told
writers.
me, actually, previously, that a really hot area is military fiction and dinosaurs. So...
you've got a dinosaur writing it. You've got a dinosaur writing
that's
it.
That's true. I mean, my son at the moment loves this dinosaurs and heavy machinery. So the dinosaurs,
JCBs,
dinosaurs driving JCBs. He absolutely loves it. So there you go. There's when you edit, is basically change all your characters, make them all dinosaurs.
Put more. There are at the moment. There are almost no dinosaurs in my book about
that's
the Cold
probably
War.
going to be why it doesn't sell, because you don't have any dinosaurs.
Not enough T-Rexes.
I recommend some velociraptors and kind of an old grizzly T-Rex.
I'll mention it to Lizette, my editor. Yes, I'm sure she'll go for that.
I want a commission on that. This is golden stuff. So.
We should also say that in the next couple of weeks, we are opening up the 101 course. So the 101 course is one of the periodic openings to take a new batch of students on. So if you've been listening to the podcast, chomping at the bit to get the good stuff from Mark, a premium course that sets out everything from beginning to end about how to set yourself up as an indie publisher. We take it from the moment you've written the end on your book, hopefully me soon. So it's not about craft, it's not about how to write your book, it is about how to become a commercially successful author on the back of your writing. So that's going to open up on, I think it is the 6th of March, remember? I think that's the Wednesday, 6th of March, for a couple of weeks there. So we'll have more about that next week. But the 101 course is coming around soon.
It is. So, yes, I'm going to let you go off and drive to the Alps.
Yes, I'm going to drive to the mountains and have a week in the mountains skiing. So hopefully I'll come back with my bones, well, operating in the same way that they do operate, not all straight. And and you, what are you doing this week?
I am. I'm writing and working, so busy. It is half term next week, but I've got lots on. So I will be doing what I usually do,
looking after the shop. Good. Thank you very much indeed, Mark. Thank you so much indeed for watching this week. We will be back next week, as I say, with that interview with Alex Neuhaus. I think is the way to say his German name, but Newton he calls himself because no one else can say Neuhaus.
Sorry, everyone.
Thank you so much indeed for watching this week. It's been a great pleasure having you. I want to say thank you to our guest, Steff Green, as well. Next week is Alex Neuhaus. I think he calls himself Alex Newton because we all struggle to say German names like that. And it's a very, very good podcast. We've got loads more to come in the next few weeks. So stay tuned. I'm going to say it's good night from him.
And it's good night from me.
Good night.
Good night.
You need to get the good night together. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Get show notes, the podcast archive, and free resources to boost your writing career at selfpublishingshow.com. Join our thriving Facebook group at selfpublishingshow.com/Facebook. Support the show at patreon.com/selfpublishingshow. And join us next week for more help and inspiration so that you can make your mark as a successful indie author. Publishing is changing, so get your words into the world and join the revolution with the Self-Publishing Show.